how does one start making a documentary about Fred Rogers? I mean, it's like you were saying, you're going down the YouTube wormhole. So I guess there must have been some material to work with, but it's like, how in the world do you even start sorting that out to figure out what the film was going to be?
Well, you go to Pittsburgh, and I mean, the next thing that happened was, my producer Karen Capitosto, who's here tonight, who works with me. I mentioned it to her, and she loved the idea. And then I had become good friends with Nicholas Ma, who's Yo-Yo's son, who's a filmmaker, and who knew the family. And I called him up and said, "Is this a good idea?" And he said, "I love it, and I'll take you to Pittsburgh and introduce you to the family." And we did. He's like, "I want to work on this." So we all kind of jumped in and went down, and they had been approached over decades to make films and had never said yes. And my pitch to them was, I don't want to make a film that's a biography of Fred Rogers. I want to make a film about his ideas. And you also can't have any control over the film.
How did that go over?
It actually went over great. I mean, part of it is, the relationship and the couple of days we spent together and the work I've done and the approach I wanted to take. I think they just decided to trust me. And once they decided to trust, it was 100%. And the best thing a filmmaker could ever hear is what Joanne said to me when we were leaving, which is, don't make Fred into a saint. And as I thought about that, I thought it was I take it many different ways, but, if there's a character who's easily sanctifiable, it's Fred Rogers. But in a way to treat him, sanctimoniously is to keep him in the same two-dimensional cardboard box that everybody else always has, and not to appreciate the human struggle that he put into it. I mean, he was a tortured artist in many ways, dealing with these things. But the other part of it that I've come to think about a lot is that to treat him as, somebody who existed on another plane is to absolve us as an audience from having to measure up and to not appreciate how much sacrifice he had to do that work, and that we can't just leave it to saints to take care of it for us, that we all have a responsibility. And that was the thing in those discussions when the one idea I knew was where I wanted to end the film, not the minute of silence, but the moment before, when I'd talked to Joanne and said, what would Fred think about this? Or what would he think about today? Or what would he think about whatever? And she said, Fred's not here anymore. And you can't even ask that question. The question's, what are you going to do? And when I heard that, I said, that's exactly what I wanted to end the film on, because Fred, the thing I loved about him and that I loved about him as a subject is, in so many ways, he was a mirror, and he was never going to tidy up anything and wrap it up in a bow and tell you, don't worry about it. Here's how you should feel about it. And it's all tidy. And, it's not that. He leaned into the messy things, and he was happy living there in this place where you had to figure out how you felt about it, and you had to work through those things. The kind of our natural instinct, both as a parent and just as a person, is to look at the complex, ugly things in our lives and kind of bury them, or not try to explore them, or telling your kids to not worry about things. And in fact, that's not healthy, because that leads to a lot of really other toxic behavior like resentment and bigotry and hatred, which is what Fred saw as kind of the toxic byproducts of fear. And I think he essentially looked at the world as divided between love and fear as the two great forces. So needless to say, this film was like really good therapy for me.